Hollywood.
I'm in Silver Lake. Where are you guys? Or
I'm in Hollywood.
You too. Transition back. Okay.
Got it.
Well, you
But
go
you-
check.
Juan Pablo, where part of LA are you in when you're here?
I had an apartment in East Hollywood. That was like
I'm
a
in North
sunset
Hollywood.
in
Nice.
Normandy, but I
in
gave it up
Silver Lake.
when I came here to Chile.
Got it.
Where
Yeah,
are
I'm on Sunset and La Brea,
you
so I'm right
guys?
there.
Or
Okay.
I'm in
cool.
Hollywood.
I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we are broadcasting to make sure that there was sound, and there is
Juan Pablo,
sound.
where
So we're
part of LA are
gonna.
you in when you're here?
woohoo!
I guess we're gonna start.
I had an apartment in
Yeah, we're
East
on.
Hollywood.
Hi
That was
everyone.
like
I'm
a
in
Just joining
North
us.
Hollywood.
Watching
Normandy,
in
but
the
I gave it up
audience
Silver Lake.
and
when I
wondering what's
came here
happening.
to Chile.
We were
Got it.
trying to get the audio
Yeah,
working
I'm on-
so that
I'm
there
on
would
Sunset
actually be
La Brea,
sound
so
for
I'm
the
right
whole
there.
Q&A.
Okay,
I'm in Hollywood.
I just wanted to give you guys a heads
thank you
up
for
that
watching
we
shorts
are
too.
broadcasting to
We
make sure
hope
that there
that
was
you
sound,
enjoyed
and there is
Juan Pablo,
sound.
where
So
part of
kind
LA
of
are you in when you're
there
here?
was some really.
I had an
We
apartment
try to
in
kind of
East
we're
give
on.
you a
Hi everyone.
smattering
of
Just
some
joining
funny
us.
and
Hollywood.
some horrible
Watching
and some like
Normandy,
in
but
the
I gave it
audience,
up
wondering
when I
what's
came here
happening.
to Chile.
We were trying to get the audio
Yeah, I'm
working.
on-
So
I'm
we
on
have
Sunset
some
La Brea,
sound
so
for
I'm
the
right
whole
there.
Q&A.
Okay.
I'm in Hollywood.
I just wanted to give you guys a
thank
heads
you
up
for
that
watching
we
shorts
are
too.
broadcasting to make sure that there was sound,
enjoyed
and there is
Juan Pablo,
sound.
where
So
part of
kind
LA
of
are you in when you're here?
Woohoo! Hi.
I had an
So
apartment
along with
in,
Katie, I'm the
We're on.
co-writer.
Hi
Give you a
everyone.
smattering
Just
of
joining
some
us.
funny and
Sunset
some
and
horrible
Watching
and some
in the
but I gave it
audience,
up
Hi,
wondering what's
when I came
happening.
writer,
here to Chile.
director,
We were trying to get the
post.
audio
Yeah, I'm
working.
on,
So
I'm
we
on
have
Sunset
some
La Brea, so
sound
I'm
for
right
the whole
there.
Q&A.
I'm in
I
Hollywood.
just wanted to give you guys a heads
thank you
up
for
that
watching
we
shorts
are
too.
broadcasting to make
We
sure that
hope
there
that
was
you
sound,
enjoyed
and there is
Juan Pablo,
sound.
where
So
part of
kind
LA
of
are you in when you're here?
Hi.
Apartment
So along with Katie,
in,
I'm the
we're on. Hi
co-writer.
everyone. Just joining us. Watching in
but
the
I gave it
audience,
up
Hi,
wondering what's
Hello,
happening.
I'm
We
Katie.
were trying to get the
I
audio
did
working. So we
I'm on
have
Sunset
some
La Brea, so I'm
sound for
right
the whole
there.
Q&A.
I'm in Hollywood.
I just wanted to give you guys a
Thank
heads
you
up
for
that
watching
we
shorts
are
too.
broadcasting to make sure that there is sound, and there is
Hi
sound.
everybody, I'm Juan Pablo, the writer
Hi.
director of this
So
apartment.
along with Katie, I'm the
We're on. Hi
co-writer.
everyone. Just joining us. Watching in
But
the
I gave it
audience.
up
Yeah. So
Hello,
we
I'm
have a
Katie.
bumper
I
contest. We
did
invite filmmakers to send us.
and
We give them our logo to
and
download. We invite them
watching
to
shorts
like
too.
a really micro short sound, and there is
Hi
a bumper
everybody, I'm Juan Pablo,
leading to the
the
short
writer
films.
director of this
Tim, is
apartment.
this your
along with
third
Katie,
year
I'm the
or fourth?
co-writer.
Hi everyone. Just joining us. Watching and
But I gave it
audience.
up
Yeah. So
I'm
yeah.
I
So this time we went animated before we've done live. Give them our logo. Was that how much of a difference did that make, and how quickly you were able as
Hi
a bumper
everybody, I'm Juan Pablo,
leading
the writer director of this
Tim, is
apartment.
this your
along with
third
Katie,
year
I'm the
or fourth?
co-writer.
Hi everyone. Just joining us. Watching and
But I gave it up
yeah. So
I'm
yeah.
I
So this time we went animated before we've done live. Give them our logo. Was that how much of a difference did that make, and how quickly you were able as
Hi
a bumper
everybody, I'm Juan Pablo,
leading
the writer director of this
Tim, is
apartment.
this your
along with
third
Katie,
year
I'm the
or fourth?
co-writer.
Hi everyone. Just joining us. Watching and
But I gave it up
yeah. So
I'm
yeah.
I
So this time we went animated before we've done live. Give them our logo. Was that how much of a difference did that make, and how quickly you were able as
Hi
a bumper
everybody, I'm Juan Pablo,
leading
the writer director of this
Tim, is this your
along with
third
Katie,
year
I'm the
or fourth?
co-writer.
Hi everyone. Just joining us. Watching and
but I gave it up
yeah. So yeah.
I
So this time we went animated before we've done live. Give them our logo. Was that how much of a difference did that make, and how quickly you were able as
Hi
a bumper
everybody, I'm Juan Pablo,
leading
the writer director of this
Tim, is this your
along with
third
Katie,
year
I'm
or
the
fourth?
co-writer.
Hi everyone. Just joining us. Watching and
but I gave it up
yeah. So yeah.
I
So this time we went animated before we've done live. Give them our logo. Was that how much of a difference? All right, we're gonna have a quick equipment change out. Sorry, you guys. We had it, of course, with these things like software plugins and things, we had it working. And then when it comes time to do the actual thing, it doesn't work as we need it to. So we're just gonna swap out our things and we will continue. So don't go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. Just hang out.
Great.
So should I just exit this meeting?
That was very quick one, Pablo. Good job.
I'm looking for you guys, but I'm missing Sumire and Jorge on Instagram. Are you guys on Instagram?
Oh.
I was very impressed.
Found you. Good.
I felt like I was in the movie where the girl's on Tinder and the dude's in her bed.
Yeah, I'm behind you, dude.
Wait, your photo's in my apartment.
Wait, I'll find all of you as well.
Is it working?
I think so. So then we're going to go to Zoom and I'm going to start your video, unmute you.
Okay.
Are you back?
Yeah. Can y'all hear me? Except I can't hear myself. I need those headphones.
You need to turn up your speakers because that's the only way that's working. Is that working? Turning up the speakers.
Yeah. All right.
Kate.
Hi. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
sorry about that. All right. I'm on the fancy laptop. Okay. So we were talking about the size of your crew. So Samire and George. Sorry about that. I saw Jorg and immediately assumed that it was pronounced Jorge.
Okay. Both ways.
So you had kind of a bigger, like a decent sized crew, and is that kind of how you always? Is this your first live action short film, or do you normally just do animation, or do you do both?
Outside of work, we work in animation, but outside of work, we do a lot of like short films and music videos. This is the first thing we've kind of directed together.
Okay.
I think on set we do kind of wear a lot of hats. Like we don't have a huge crew, but like for the rest of the short, we do have composers and visual effects artists, and you know we don't wear that many hats when we're off the set.
For the rest of you, Carrie and Katie and Juan and Tim and Alex, what do you find to be the most challenging thing about kind of wearing all those hats yourselves? And
well, for us, I would say we both come from acting and writing backgrounds. So the producing part was more of like the learning curve for us. And we did have 2 other producers that came on board, especially for when we were on set, because we didn't want to focus. We wanted to be able to focus on the performance since we were on set. Yeah, I would say that. I don't know, Katie.
I totally agree. Yeah, the production part I was the least comfortable with, but I mean, yeah, thank God we had 2 other people to help.
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, for me at least in this experience, I was able to just concentrate on directing
since it was my my thesis for AFI. So like there were people doing all the other jobs for the first time in my life. So like I can every other time I've done it, like I can definitely relate to just doing everything. And I think the most challenging thing is just you're not able to concentrate on just one thing, the thing that you're supposed to do. That job has a specific role that has limits for a reason, right? And when you're doing everything, it kind of blends together, and you don't really know what your responsibilities are, or where your like your jurisdiction ends a little bit. So I think that's the most challenging thing.
Well, for me, according to my ex-girlfriend, I'm very controlling. So I think I like doing all of these things. I don't agree with that, by the way. But no, I think I do have trouble kind of letting people do things that I think I know how to do, if that makes sense. I'm very easy to let people do things that I have no idea how to do, like visual effects or something. But my background's in editing, so it was easier for me to edit the movie than try to relay it to someone else, for example.
My background is in acting as well. For me, I've always been interested in directing and writing. So I kind of branched out that way. And but Gwen, answering your question, a lot of times for me, it's finding people that are committed. And where I'm at, I can't really pay people. I can't really pay a crew. So it's usually volunteers, and some are great, some are very committed. But a lot of times you'll get people that say they're going to show up, they don't show up. So you end up, a lot of times doing a lot of the stuff on your own. The last short that I shot, I was doing craft services. I shot it. I did just about everything, but I had two other crew guys. One guy was doing audio for me and another guy was assisting me with the camera. And they were fabulous. If you could always get that much commitment out of volunteers, it would be great, but it's not always the case, at least for me anyway.
It's easy to rely on yourself.
Yeah, you're going to show up, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we have a question from Guignolfest. It asks, how long did it take to make all of your films?
Ours was a 2-day shoot, and then we had a short pickup that took like an hour in addition.
Mine was 6 years from the time that my brother and I came up with the idea to when I was finally done with it. So, long time.
Ours was like 8 to 7 months of just development, because it was like part of the program at school. We had 5 days to shoot, and then we did 1 day of pickups and reshoots.
We had a pretty quick turnaround for ours. I think we raised money in December, shot it in February, over 3 days. And I think that's when everything kind of comes to a screeching halt, because you're waiting for people to do things in post-production for you and trying to find room in their schedules, especially because we work in animation. So we're kind of borrowing people who do visual effects, who do post-production sound. We worked with people from Skywalker Sound, just because we knew them through work, and they just fit it into their schedule. But it took a lot of time for them to be able to chip away at it. So, but before that, it went pretty fast.
Mine was about 2 days, but the nature of mine was the ultimate running time. I think it was 19 seconds. So mine was very different than everyone else's. So.
All right, so we have a College Humor fan on the chat, and they're asking of Carrie and Katie, when there is a sketch on College Humor that's kind of dark or horror-centric, how likely was it that one of the two of you had that idea for the skit?
I was a cast member. Carrie was in some of the videos, so Carrie wasn't really writing any of them. But I'd say a lot of the time it was, definitely one of mine, or there were a couple other people who were really into the kind of creepier, eerie thing. We did a whole purge series. So that was really fun. I guess it was like all of us though.
Okay.
Okay, Carrie, were you involved in the Purge videos at all?
Not in the Purge ones. No, I watched them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did both of you write the script for Waffle?
Yeah.
Okay. And where did that, so like talk about where that idea came from, because it's, so I have like a soft spot in my heart for weird heiresses. Like I have this fantasy of being a soap heiress or something like that. So where did that all come from? And like, tell us a little bit about how you kind of also worked in the app in there, because I love that too.
I think a lot of it is just from, sorry, my dog keeps running into the door. It's so distracting. I just keep hearing her claws. It's very bad. Anyway, yeah, so I think a lot of it was just from like people being on social media more and kind of like the isolation of society. So it was just like themes that we were seeing in real life that we liked and wanted to kind of talk about more. And then we're also huge Yorgos Lanthimos fans who did like Killing of the Sacred Deer, The Favorite, Lobster. And we kind of were influenced by like his ability to create a whole strange world, but that looks like ours. So this was kind of our attempt to do that as well.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the Waffle, we just were thinking of, well, economic disparity and how that might play out in like the gig economy. And we were just thinking of like, what would be like kind of a random dumb thing to have a lot of money like just like I grew up in Pasadena, and like there's a Wrigley mansion, and I was just thinking about like someone having, you know, a huge fortune from like chewing gum. Like that's just an interesting kind of character. So that's kind of, I don't even know exactly how we came up with the waffle thing, but it just kind of stuck. And
it was like a dumb thing that you could kill someone with.
Then that too.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. The next question is for Sumir and George. How much of the demon in Bakemono was practical versus VFX, or were there any VFX?
Yeah, I guess so when we shot it, we basically had an amazing makeup artist on set. So she was able to actually create the molds for like the horns that you saw and like all of the fangs and, you know, all of the makeup. So that was all practical. And actually we're hoping to just keep it practical, but when we, you know, started editing it, it's like, all right, we need to kind of plus it a little more. So we had the help of some visual effects artists to kind of just plus that. So yeah, I would say that it's mostly practical, but we also added in like a little eye effect. And yeah, I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah, all they really did was take the teeth and the horns that already existed and just had them grow in the frame. But that was just in that one shot when she's coming at camera. Okay. Everything else was practical.
Nice. And how did you come up with the idea to do that particular story? One of our judges commented that you know, they've seen other kind of Japanese demon films or stories about them or animes, but she had never seen the Bakemono story.
Yeah, so I guess it was kind of based on like my childhood. Like my mom, she would like whenever she tried to get me to eat dinner, she would tell this story of if I don't finish the food in my plate, then, you know, I will get haunted by this monster. And Bakemono means a monster, like a shape-shifting monster. So that's kind of where the idea stemmed from.
Fun. So kind of your mom's version of there are starving kids in Africa, like finish. Right. Okay. Except I think that your mom's probably was more effective in the real risk reward category. Let's see. I think I just saw
the little girl in your film was wonderful. How many children or little girls did you see before you cast her?
Yeah, she was actually amazing on set. We didn't actually like I guess audition a lot. We just went through like 3 or 4. We were initially looking for like Japanese young, you know, 6 to 7 year old girls. But Claudia, who is an actress, she doesn't speak Japanese, but she was, you know, able to memorize some words. in Japanese, and she, performed really well in that. So yeah, we were super lucky.
She was the only non-Japanese girl that we auditioned, but she was just so good. And originally we had a lot of Japanese lines, but she was so good that we said, we can't pass this up. And we pared down the Japanese lines to just one. And we taught her, not me, she taught her how to say that one line.
All right, let's see. I'm just checking the feed. It looks like at the beginning some people missed what films people made, so I'm just gonna go through. Carrie Barker and Katie Maravich, the women with the glasses, made Waffle. Alex, raise your hand. Alex made Overkill. One Pablo Arias Munoz with the giant cans made History of Monsters. Sumire and George made Bakemono, and Tim Blau did the bumper that we saw right at the beginning of the shorts block. Let's see. Do you guys have questions for each other? Yeah, go for it.
I want to know if Katie and Carrie are like actually best friends in real life.
It's up for debate.
It is up for debate. I would like to become closer to Carrie.
I'd like to become less close to Katie.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a struggle.
That kind of thing.
I think it came across really well, that relationship on the film.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm curious, what did everyone shoot on as far as what cameras did you guys use?
At a Red Epic.
I think we had an Ari Amira. Is that right?
That sounds right.
We shot on an Alexa Mini, I think, with anamorphic lenses.
Nice.
So was everything 4K? Were you guys all shooting 4K?
No, we didn't shoot 4K. Like the workflow just became too much. Yeah, because it gets too expensive with like all the hard drives and and the transcoding is like it's way too takes too long. I mean, I wish we could have done 4K because then you have a lot more room to resize and like to reshape your shots a little bit.
Yeah,
but it took too long.
What did you end up? Did you end up at 2K or 1080?
I think we did 2K. We did 2K, so we had a little bit of room, but not so much.
I did 2K so that I could do some slow-mo because it wouldn't go all the way up to 4K for slow-mo on that camera at the time.
Oh, okay, cool.
6 years ago.
So we have another question for History of Monsters. So same question, how much of the monsters? So what was the concept for those horrible, horrible things? Someone commented that they looked a little like the vampire engineers from the Aliens franchise. And they also want to know how much of that was practical body makeup versus VFX.
So our monsters were completely body makeup. We had a great team of makeup artists on set. And they had to go through like 6 hours of makeup. So we had to put them on makeup during like the first half of the day. Yeah, it's like the Grinch and Jim Carrey. It's like one of those stories. Like all the guys had to go through makeup through the first part of the day, and then we could only shoot with them during like the second half. Yeah, and it was pretty cool to work like that. I think it's a little bit more effective whenever it's like all practical and whenever you can do it. And what was the other question?
What was kind of the concept behind them? Because they're kind of this pale, horrible, maybe they're vampires, maybe they're ghouls. We don't really know.
Well, they're kind of like conceptually, they're just supposed to be monsters that are like born out of darkness. I think in reality, like the idea is that the monsters represent the characters' fear of men, in a way. Because I mean, if you follow the theme of the film, it's all about gender dynamics. It's all about how the main character has struggles between her self-preservation and her sexual desires, right? And they all kind of conflict with this one guy. And like as you go through the movie, you learn why she's acting the way she's acting, and and that all kind of has to do with that fear, of fear of men. That's why basically the monsters are just naked men, and we just sort of painted the bodies a little bit more to make it look a little bit different than the actual skin color, and we distorted the faces a little bit and the hands, but ultimately it's just a naked male body.
Interesting. So
That's pretty scary.
you're kind of letting the viewer put their own, like, whatever they bring to it onto what they're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, definitely. That was the intention. I think the movie has a pretty open narrative. I don't think it just gives you the answers. And I think it's always exciting when people, hopefully, if they engage with the film, they can bring their own stuff into it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So one last question. Do any of you guys have plans for a full-length feature horror film?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
can you talk about them right now, or are they in development, or is it just kind of the seed of an idea, or?
Yeah, Carrie and I are actually working on the feature film, and we've been talking to a production company, and then we're also working on kind of making shorter things that are in the same world as Waffle, and doing a lot of that. So we have a lot more to explore in the Waffle world.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm in a similar position where I've pitched a feature version of a similar idea, not exactly the same thing, but like the same slasher kind of comedy, to a production company, and we'll see what happens. But I'm currently writing it. I wrote an outline and all that, so hopefully that'll get going.
We're working the feature version of Black Kimono as well. It's quite different from the short film, so it's really expanded. It's really its own thing, actually, but it's the same concept.
Yeah, same for me. I'm working on the feature of the history of monsters, among other projects. That one's written. And I'm also just sort of trying to find a way to finance it, which I think for a first feature it's the hardest to do. So if anyone out there has $1 million and you're listening, you can get my information with guys at the Portland Horror Film Festival.
Anyone has $500,000, call me first.
Oh, dude.
One Pablo, someone asked, how many monsters were there? Like, how many performers that were monsters did you have in the film?
So when we had the complete set of monsters, we had 6. Okay. So there were 6 guys on full body makeup.
Wow. And I noticed a couple in some of the scenes. I was kind of rewound it because they're like, is that the same monster? Is that a different monster? Did they all just kind of happen to look similar, or did you end up repeating some of the performers in different spots, so it seemed like there were more of them?
They all do look similar, they all have the same face distortion. But we just cheated, and for one shot we just brought some of the guys up front, and then for another one we kind of scrambled them and put some of them in the back to make it look like it was more than 6. Hopefully it could look like it was 20 or 25.
Okay. Yeah, because it seemed like there was a lot. It was scary.
Oh, it's great. It's great to hear.
Let's see. So for Overkill, someone said they noticed that there was a note about a mask shop in the credits. And
yeah.
Can anyone get a custom mask like the one that you used?
Yes, you can.
So
yeah, I got it on a website called fiberglassmask.com. Okay. I designed it and sent the guy a photo, and we worked on it for a couple months and got it to where we wanted it, and he sent it to me. You can actually buy this mask on their website now, which is cool. I don't get any money from it. But...
I was just going to ask if you get a kickback from that.
No. It was our deal where I told him he could sell because he was happy with how it came out. I just told him to write, not for people not to use it in movies or anything, just so that I could ideally use it down the road.
Sure. All right.
Part of the kind of imagery for the short, or the feature rather. Sorry.
For sure. So one question that we had in the last Wednesday's Q&A was how much blood did you use? How much fake blood did you use? What was your fake blood budget?
We had one bucket filled with fake blood and one take to get that girl soaking wet in blood. And my producer stepped into the frame while throwing it, so he's in the shot, and so we cropped him out and like erased him and put all this debris over it and stuff. So it worked out fine, but we didn't have very much fake blood at all. We maybe had $50 worth.
That's incredible. So you got a lot of bang for your buck there.
Yeah, much like George, sorry, I forget your name, George and Samir, we called in a lot of favors also from people I've worked with over the years. The people who did our sound design had just finished doing Venom. Like, I called in favors from all these people, and that's part of why it took so long, but that's also why we didn't end up spending a ton of money. I purposely, after my last short, didn't want to beg people for money on Kickstarter because I just felt so guilty afterwards. So I paid for it all myself pretty much, and then just called in a lot of favors, and that gives you $50 and a bucket worth of blood.
Wow. So that actually brings us to our next question: is how much did each of your films cost you to make? Like, what was your filming budget?
I know I spent out of pocket like $6,000, which is pretty low, all things considered, but the value is much higher given all the free Panavision rentals and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we paid. Our budget was $16,000.
We raised it on Indiegogo, for a lot of it on Indiegogo.
I think we raised. I think ours came out to 11,000 at the end, and we raised like close to 8,000, I think. So
yeah,
our budget was $60K. The school gives us like a floor, and then we have to raise like the rest. I was happy to shoot a feature with that money, to be honest, but it was a school project. So
what's the floor? What do they give you?
They give you 20K, and you have to raise the rest.
Why bother?
That's what I said. But
if you're 20, let's do it for 20.
And then so like then there were 4 of us who were doing our thesis on like production. Me as a director, a cinematographer, and a production designer, and we all committed to raise 10K like within our group of people. So then with the 20K from school plus the 10K that everyone brought, we got in the 60K.
Nice. So for each of you, this is a question I always think about. Like, I know that some short film makers are just doing this for fun, but for you, is this, making short films, is it kind of a proof of concept for, trying to get funding for your larger projects? Is it a passion project? Is it just like something you do because you love it? Like, kind of what are you getting out of it? I always wonder. Other than making us really happy.
You and my parents asked me the same question.
Yeah. Well, so Carrie and I worked together at College Humor, and we made like a short together then, and we really like loved working together. So I guess this was kind of like us being like, we should like do something else. And then the fact that we can now turn this into a feature is like an added bonus. But yeah, I think we just like we have like similar interests and likes. And so it was very easy to work together.
Yeah, we didn't go into it being though like, okay, this is definitely going to be a feature, so we have to make the short first. Like we kind of we're like, let's just focus on that next step and then see where it goes. So yeah, here we are.
Mine. So I mostly do comedies. I've done a bunch of short comedies, which always the goal is to get a feature, not necessarily adapt the short into a feature, but just go make features. I had a friend, hi Kat. I had a friend who made a short horror film and won a ton of awards and got a lot of notice and representation and all that kind of stuff. And so he suggested I do a horror movie. And so this was kind of just me trying to throw my hat in the ring and kind of enter a market I hadn't really been involved with before. And thankfully it's been pretty successful, gotten into a lot of festivals and gotten some attention. So now it could be a feature, sure.
They're about 30 live views.
For me, it's a matter of being an actor, and Katie and Carrie can probably relate to this. You generally you're not working as much as you would like to, and I'm a union actor, which makes it even that much more difficult. So I'm not working as much. So I'm always wanting to stay creative. So I'm usually either writing or directing something. So that's just to keep that creative juice flowing for myself is what for me really helps.
Yeah, for me, well, this was a short that was part of my graduate program, so I kind of had to do it. But I think, at least for the career of any filmmaker, I think or any director, any writer, you will always kind of start with a short. That's the first place where you go, and then you hope festivals kind of like it. Like you guys just like pick up a few and show it to people, and that's how you slowly start building up a career. I think the cases where people just make one short and go to Sundance and then they become famous and then they do like the big explosive career, I think those are just one in a generation. I think the rest of us kind of just do a lot of shorts until we can do features. I think that's just the career.
Yeah, I think we're a mixture of what Juan and Tim said. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, of course we want to have a budget to make a big feature and, you know, break out. But we work at a big company, and, you know, sometimes you start to feel like a cog in a machine. So we really need that outlet to be creative. But I think I feel like shorts really need to feel like shorts. Like I don't always go into it feeling like, oh, this needs to be a proof of concept, because it's hard for me to rein myself in. Like I just want to make the feature, you know, so I just want to stuff everything in there. So then you have to kind of be like, remind yourself, this is a short, make the story that deserves to be a short film, you know.
Totally.
Nice. Alex, I just had a quick question for you, because you said was this your first horror film that you've been involved in, but are you a horror fan?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't. Okay, nice.
I go there.
I was gonna say, like, if you weren't a horror fan, like, you nailed all of the tropes so perfectly.
Oh yeah, no. I love slasher movies. Like 80s slasher movies are my favorite.
So there's a question for Katie and Carrie for Waffle, because in the shorts block, there was another short film called Swipe, about a woman who's kind of being stalked on her dating app by a supernatural entity. And we noticed this year there's a lot of films that kind of use that technology as a horror element. How central was the idea of that technology to your overall story in Waffle? Or is that something you just kind of sprinkled on as seasoning?
I think it was always connected through kind of the overarching theme of like the gig economy, because I think that really interests us in like the power dynamics within that. And, you know, like we both enjoy shows like Black Mirror, and like the dark side of technology interests us. So it was all kind of swirled in, but it's funny because when we were kind of coming up with the idea, we just were like meeting every week at coffee shops and just throwing out different things that interest us. So it just kind of turned into this big soup of ideas. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly. Yeah. I don't know, Katie, if you remember exactly when we...
No, I don't have any memory of that.
But it does feel very conducive to like the horror genre, just because there's so many things that can go wrong with technology or be abused, you know.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's so many, we're all so connected and wired and like glued to our technology and tablets and phones that it's interesting to me that that's starting to show up in horror films, because it's this fear, like privacy issues. And recently, like you all saw that John Oliver piece on facial recognition and things like that. So I think it's becoming more and more of a theme that we might start seeing. So I think if you guys are good, we're going to wrap up. There's one last question that I love. I love these kind of questions. What horror film do you love that you secretly think that no one else does?
All the Boys Love Mandy Lane.
Okay. Why do you think no one else likes that film?
Because so I remember the Weinstein Company had it, and then they dumped it, and then it was bought by like Senator or something, and until it hit Netflix, like I kept telling people how much I enjoyed it, and everyone was like, I've never even heard of it. So I just think exposure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I'll go. I have one. Brian's gonna laugh at me. So I love Van Helsing. It's a terrible, terrible movie.
That's a horror movie?
But I love it so much. I guess it's kind of horror adjacent. I mean, it has Dracula, Frankenstein, and werewolves in it. I think that qualifies.
Yeah, and it has Hugh Jackman with great extensions.
No, he wasn't in it. It was Kate Beckinsale and David Wenham from Lord of the Rings.
And Hugh Jackman played Van Helsing.
Yeah, I thought so
Did
too.
he?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I was so focused on everything else about that film that was such a beautiful hot mess that I completely forgot.
It's a masterpiece. I get it.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I did enjoy seeing the Frankenstein's glass brain.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
I've watched Van Helsing plenty. I know.
Would anybody else like to share their guilty pleasure horror movie?
I feel like everyone loves so many horror movies. It's like hard to say what someone wouldn't love. I mean, this one like hasn't necessarily dated well in every way, but Single White Female is definitely a fun watch. And there were some like moments and tropes in there that were fun to watch, like as inspiration for like a 2 female lead like horror thriller. Yeah.
This isn't really a horror movie, but I really enjoyed both volumes of Nymphomaniac, which I think I might be the only person.
Yeah, a lot of people like that movie.
Really? Because every time I bring it up, everyone's like, no, but I like it.
Yeah.
It's good.
I like this movie. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's a movie that the guys who made Blair Witch did after Blair Witch. It's called Seventh Moon. It has Amy Smart on it.
Yeah.
And actually, it's like I was so scared by that movie that like actually the History of Monsters kind of has a little bit of that, of like random white monsters running through the night. If you see that, you'll see a lot of like what I do, and like I don't think anyone has like seen that movie, but I was scared by it when I saw it as a kid, so it's a guilty pleasure for sure.
I'm glad I have Samira here to remind me, because I have terrible memory, but I'm a huge fan of Tremors 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I tried to go beyond 2, and they're just awful. But 1 and 2 is like, it's Jaws out in the desert. They're really solid.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna this one. It's a classic, but I don't know if a lot of people. I mean, is the original Nosferatu was a pretty creepy film for the time it was made. But I know it's a classic, but I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with it. But it's really, if you've never seen it, it's creepy. Mm-hmm. I think it's 1922. Yeah, when it was made, I think. It
was the height of German expressionist filmmaking. F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu.
Yes.
Definitely check it out.
No Troll 2, but yeah.
No Troll 2. But there's a pretty girl in it. All right, we're going to wrap up. But before we go, can you just tell everyone where they can find more of your work and where to follow you on social media so they stay abreast of your developing projects?
Yes. Our short, you can follow along at waffletheshort.com. And I'm on social media at Carrie Lee B, KerryLeebee.
Yes, I am. I'm at Katie Maravich on everything. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
You can follow me on Instagram or on Twitter as @_J and then Juan Pablo, which is so it's JJUANPABLO. Follow me.
can follow what we do on DIY or Die Productions on Instagram. DIY or Die, like do it yourself or die.
I'm on all social media as AK Montilla, Montilla. You can find lots of photos of me and my cats. And then my film is overkillfilm.com to see screenings and all that kind of stuff there.
It's terrible to say. I'm not on any social media page
Smart.
probably, but I do have a website which is timblau.com.
Nice.
Great.
Brian's gonna pop in and say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, this is, if you can't tell, purely a two-person operation. So, so somebody has to operate everything, and while the other person does the talking. But it's been
That's
so
like
good
most of our
having you
films.
guys here. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, you guys. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed watching the films here, and now the Q&A is just great. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to finish them.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking part. This has been such a weird year, and it's really given us a lot of comfort that so many filmmakers kind of rallied behind this idea. So, thank you guys for being here. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.
And hopefully sometime we'll see you up here in Portland.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
next year. We'll see how
Yeah.
this goes.
Wait,
Yeah.
let's take a group photo.
Oh, cool.
Everybody in. Ready? Wait, hold on. There we go. Great.
You.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
if you guys-
everybody.
if any of you
Thank
ever
you
get
so
up
much,
to
you
Portland,
guys.
look us up.
For sure.
Thank you.
I'll make a new film just to come see you guys. So you have to screen it.
That's legally binding. Bye, everyone.
Good night,
Bye,
everyone. Thank you
guys.
again.
All right.
How to turn this off? There we
If
go.
you're still watching live and you want to go see Wild Boar, there should be a link like right under the video viewer on the original page that you're watching the Q&A, and it'll take you right back to Wild Boar.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking around and watching the Q&A live with us.
Awesome. Yeah, there were about 30 people signed in, so that's a pretty good Q&A. Thanks for
Yeah.
asking such good questions. We'll talk to you later.